And right now, you'll see that for and the against, the verbiage is all stacked on top of one another. We're trying to get it to read for or against changing the terms. And the reason is you have a screenshot of what the express vote looks like. It puts just the for and the against on a second page all by itself.
Well, just because of the way the spacing works?
Yes. And so I think to make it, you know, we always care, how do the voters view the ballot in the simplest terms? I think this could be confusing to voters. They read everything here, and then the next page says for and against, and it doesn't have anything else with it. We think if we can combine for or against and take out that second one, we should be able to get the for and the against to fit all on one page. But I have to ask permission from the city attorney in order to change the language on the ballot, because this was essentially how they presented the language for the ballot for us.
You can't just move the spacing down
So,
on the second part, you know, hit enter a bunch of times.
We thought about that, but it's gonna make a lot of gaps in the pages. And then also, when originally we were at a 9 font, and then we went to 10 because we had the space.
Right.
But on the City of Goshen's ballot, so this was when we were at 9. If you'll see, this is their front page, the issues on their front page. When we moved everything to 10, it moved the special election to the back. And I worried about it being on the back, even though I know voters will look at the back, sometimes they're less likely to look at the back. I feel like if we put a bunch of spaces in, they also appear on the paper ballot as well, that those spaces might push it to the back. And so we're kind of in a situation with this one, just because we want to make sure that the ballot is easy for the voters to read, but I don't want to be changing ballot language the way they presented it. This has been a solution we've done in past for previous ballots. So we will continue to kind of work on that solution. But if you'll notice on the express vote, we would have to put a ton of space in there to get both for and against to go all the way down to the second page, which I think would add too much on the paper ballot.
On the tab for or against, you can't use or you can't add this language.
So they didn't present it to us that way.
Yeah.
They presented it to us with the for and the against. That's what they wanted to follow, the for and the against. But it's too many characters for it to fit after the for and the against. This is always an issue we have. If you notice the Prairie Grove ballot that you have, essentially we had to do the same thing with the Prairie Grove ballot. You'll notice it says for the sale of alcoholic beverage, against the sale of alcoholic beverage, and then we had to do a for and against. Because that's too much verbiage to go after that. So we tried the same thing with the City of Goshen, and then we ran into a problem on the express vote. Now, so I'm honestly not sure what the solution is. The only other thing we might be able to do is where it says special election, and I'm looking at the express vote ballot, changing the terms of council members in the City of Goshen from 2-year terms to staggered 4-year terms. I don't know if we might just want to repeat that language above
more.
the for and the against. I don't know, but once again, we would want to consult with the city attorney, because we're adding, even though it's the same language, we're adding language to the ballot.
What's your simplest cure for the problem?
I believe the simplest cure for the problem is to take the for and the against and combine that into one sentence and then it just would read for and against.
Why don't you present it to the city
I have,
in that form?
yes,
And if not, then we'll have they'll have to go to the second phase for the for and against the vote.
right, I have been communicating with the city of Goshen, about the solution for it, but I haven't heard anything back from the city of Goshen yet.
Are you talking to decision makers?
Yes, I'm talking to their city attorney and then their mayor.
Can you make that presentation?
Yes, that's what, yes, I sent all of this information to the city yesterday, with the different information that they
So
would,
you sent the recommendation down there considering,
yes.
I think those are good solutions, I mean,
absolutely.
yeah.
I mean,
You know,
Other,
I mean, we can only do so much with the software programming. Sometimes it bumps into a second page.
Well,
I think
yeah.
those are good solutions.
And let them make the decision, what's more important to them. You know,
Right,
Yeah.
Consolidate it and keep it all on one page or not.
Sure, yeah,
It's your call.
I agree.
yeah, give them the first option on what they would like to do.
okay.
And then we'll know.
And then the other one, that, the Prairie Grove one, which I'm waiting to hear back from them as well. Normally, we call it a special election, but in the language and the ordinance, it calls it a referendum election. So that's the language that we put on the ballot. And so I've asked, so they'll have two city attorneys. The city of Prairie Grove has their own attorney, but, the county attorney, actually the city, or the Forum Court actually passed this ordinance.
Okay.
And so I've asked them if this is the language, the referendum election, or do you want it to say special election, but the ordinance and in the law, it says this is a referendum election, so,
That's what they passed, and they provided to us, you know.
Yes.
We're not the ones
Right.
making up the
Right.
language here, we're just
Right.
doing the language they provided us on the
Yeah.
ballot. So, I think it's good to flag that for them, but,
yeah.
you know, if they put referendum, then that's what they want.
So is that a real issue?
No, it's just an odd,
Yeah.
normally when people look at the ballots for these, like if you look at Lincoln's, Lincoln says special election.
Right.
But when you look at Prairie Grove, now it's gonna say referendum election. But people in Lincoln aren't gonna see the Prairie Grove ballot,
True,
people in
yeah.
Prairie Grove.
Yeah.
So, we're typically the ones who see it, but I just wanted to make note
Mhm.
Sure.
of that.
Prairie Grove's population has probably been hearing referendums all along.
Oh,
As it's been communicated.
Yes,
I would think they've been hearing referendums.
Maybe, and is this a referendum election? I don't know, you know, I'm not the court, I don't know, I think that's they provide us the language, we put the language on
Right.
the ballot, if someone has a problem with that, I think they've gotta take, you know, judicial action.
I'd be hard pressed to believe that, there's been any conversation other than a referendum by the powers that be, the attorney side, for the county, in putting this, item forward to the community. I don't see any confusion there personally.
well, it's just an oddity, but
It is different,
if it's their preference, then that's what we use.
yeah.
and all you're doing is getting clarification.
I'm just seeking clarification, and I just don't want any surprises. I mean, you know, there's always, after we get all the ballots printed, then someone sees something on there and then there's a question.
Mhm.
I want to be prepared to answer
Right.
why it is that
Yeah,
way,
it's good to flag it on the front end, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so.
Okay, looks good, other than, yep, looks good to me, ballot too.
I agree.
Yeah, I think they actually, even going with the 3-column, I think there's plenty of white space. I think there's plenty of space between the voters, or for the candidate names and everything. So I actually think it's a pretty
It's a nice.
clean
I
ballot,
agree.
so.
Very good.
Do you need these back?
No, just, yeah. I mean, those will be changed, just a little tweak, especially, well, the Goshen one for sure,
Yeah.
is the one that will be changed.
printed on ballot stock, and they're not,
No,
just
no,
copies, okay.
no, they're just
They can't be
copies.
cast.
So we have been printing, on the BOD in Becky's office. So that we're making sure that that works
Good.
the way it's supposed to work. And we'll test these through the 450 today to make sure
Oh, good, okay.
that they all run through the 450, and then hopefully, we'll be able to start printing ballots for Becky
Mm.
within, hopefully by the end of next week,
Good deal. Great.
so.
Super. Well, so we need to approve these as presented and, with the idea that if you discover spelling errors or such, that, you can change those without further. Can I have a motion for that?
Minor correction.
Yeah.
So it's just a minor correction.
Mm-hmm.
Including any revisions related to the special elections in Goshen.
Right. Right.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
did your secretary think she got that motion?
I should have repeated
I
it.
think so.
Yeah.
They're watching, yes.
Okay, well, it has been approved, and, you need to just move forward on that, and let us know if there's
Really
any
good.
glitch.
We're cleaned up nicely.
Yep.
Yeah,
We
it
thought,
looks good.
yeah, we thought so too.
And you kept it to one,
We kept it to one
Sheet.
page. We've gone through, just like in the city of Springdale, where there's 4 ward races, we didn't want to just leave one ward race on the back. So we went through and just put 2 on the front and 2 on the back, because all 4 won't fit on the front. So we didn't want to just leave one kind of hanging out there on the
Yeah.
back, but it still says City of Springdale on the back. But yeah, no, I mean,
even that one doesn't look terribly crowded.
no, it doesn't,
Looks very
even with
good.
the issues on the candidates on the back and everything, so. And, Debbie had a point, as I was concerned, will people realize it's a 2-page ballot? But they're going to receive this ballot folded,
Oh, yeah.
so when they open it up, they're obviously gonna see what's on the back, and then when they fold it to put it
Right.
back in there, they're gonna see that there's stuff on the back. So I feel like that definitely voters will realize it's a front
Mhm.
and back page ballot.
I'm just
So.
glad it's not 3 pages.
Me too.
Okay, any other comments on the ballots? Let's go to early vote site review.
So I did speak with the Springdale Civic Center, and they are available for us for the full 2 weeks, and also on Election Day. So if we want to just go ahead and make the move to the Springdale Civic Center, we don't have to vote on it today, but that definitely, they are available for us, and willing to let us be there.
Now, are we, when we talked about the rodeo, we were talking Tuesday through Saturday. Are we talking Monday through Saturday at the Civic Center?
I believe, I just need to clarify, with the Civic Center, I know that on Saturday nights, they have events, but I think their staff comes in on Sunday and cleans. So I will verify with them if that's the case, and if that's the case, then we would be able to be there Monday through Saturday for the full 2 weeks.
Right, okay.
So yes, but I will definitely verify that, with them as well. And they do have space for us to store the voting equipment, but just like any other space that uses it, for something alternative, we would remove the ballots, any pertinent, and just leave actually the basic equipment stored in a locked room,
Yes.
and then go back and set back up on Sunday, if that works with their schedule, which I believe it will.
Okay.
Well, that's great, especially if you can get 2 extra days of early vote out of it.
Right, that's
Yeah.
what I
Monday.
thought
Yeah.
too.
That's
We
2
just-
extra days.
We just need to really hammer people, come and vote early. And, if we've got the extra days there, we would hope it would take off
Yep.
and not be kind of slow and laggard. Our first experiment, maybe,
I agree.
we don't want it to be like that.
Jennifer, can you send us pick your top 3 slowest early vote locations, dates, and times, and send those to us, because I've had folks ask me, you know, who are concerned about COVID, who maybe are considering voting absentee, but are also considering voting early, especially if they can go to a location that isn't especially crowded, and, you know,
Get
that
in
way.
and get out.
Exactly, I can provide that info to them,
Yeah.
and it's a win-win, because there are fewer people voting at the time for them, and it's a win for us, because then it'll boost our numbers at slower locations on dates and times,
Yeah.
and help get more folks out to vote early.
So I won't have times,
Yeah, but,
but
you
I'll
know,
have
days,
days, yes.
you know, like 5 o'clock is
Yeah.
busy, I don't know if it is,
Actually, it's not.
well, there you go, see?
Actually, at the courthouse between 4:30 and 6,
Yep,
they do very little,
Oh, that's interesting.
voters here between 4:30 and 6. It is their slowest time here at the courthouse. And I think it's because everybody is just trying to get home.
They're
Sure.
skedaddling.
And so they
Yeah.
think, oh, I'm not gonna mess with the traffic
Yeah.
around the courthouse.
Yeah.
And they're almost, like, they're out of there at 6 o'clock because there's no
Wow.
one in
Yeah.
there. So, which
Yeah.
is kind of interesting. But yes, I'll send you the slowest
Thank
days
you.
for the
slowest
locations.
days, locations, and approximate times, I don't know, because I wouldn't have known that necessarily,
Right,
that 4:30 to 6 was
Well, and
slower.
that's the kind of info I think that we could put on the Facebook page for the general public. Please pay attention to this, because this may help you, expedite your vote.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot we had a Facebook page
Yeah,
now.
well, it's so new.
Yeah, funny. But I don't disagree that especially if you're putting approximate times, you're not saying,
Right,
come
no.
on X date at X time to X location, because then everyone's gonna show up.
Right.
If you're saying approximate dates, times, and locations, and that way, they
And
will
we
space
need-
it out.
And we need to, include in there a sort of a disqualifier that says, look, we think these are the best times.
Based on
And-
historical data.
Yes, and it may, this being a large election, it may end up not being that way, but it's a good try.
I agree.
At least it gives them a shot.
Yeah,
Give them a
exactly.
shot.
Okay,
And it also
Event center?
eliminates handling that much more paperwork.
Yeah, for the absentee ballots.
So the Boys and Girls Club is a definite no. I reached out to Kyle at the Boys and Girls Club yesterday.
Oh, yeah, can you send it to Tom too?
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I reached out to, the Boys and Girls Club yesterday, you know, since they had first week of school in Fayetteville, to see, you know, if maybe they would be willing to have us. And he was so apologetic, but they won't be able to because of social distancing for the kids that they have there. They are using every bit of space in that Boys and Girls Club. And even kids that aren't necessarily going the 5 days a week, some are having to go to the Boys and Girls Club and do virtual learning at the Boys and Girls Club. So they won't be able to have us there as a voting location, for this year. That doesn't mean that we won't be able to
That
go
we're locked
back
out
there.
forever.
But what was the old event center on Weddington Drive is 2 minutes away, even in heavy traffic. I mean, that's the way I go home. Even in heavy traffic, it's just really 2 minutes away from the Boys and Girls Club. It seems, when you drive down Weddington, it seems like it is forever, but it is actually just a 2-minute drive from that light on Weddington. And the nice thing about it is that there's also a light at that intersection as well. The voters won't have to try and navigate the traffic back and forth. I feel like this is our best solution to continue to have a location on Weddington. And for voters in Farmington, it's on that Double Springs Road. So if you're in Farmington, that's an easy back way to come into, I mean, I know Luce and the Boys and Girls Club is, you know, is a popular location for us, but I think that this location will be easy for us. And it doesn't have as many doors as like the Boys and Girls Club. So it'll be easier for us to let the voters know exactly where to go in. We'll have our own separate space. But it definitely is a solution for us. That doesn't mean that I won't, continue to look at the locations that Matthias owns, but I'm just hesitant to get one of those because we don't know if all of a sudden it may fill up or what the electrical and, you know, is there electricity still in there or what?
That
Yeah,
they'd give it to us through the election.
Right.
so,
And they might be willing to do that if they have sufficient space, especially if they have sufficient vacancy rates in some of that commercial space. It may not hurt to get more folks in there, I don't know.
So is this, event center, are they willing to commit to the 2 weeks?
oh, definitely.
Okay.
And there's also a possibility, I need to talk to Leah, there, you know, we have not been able to be open on the Saturday at the Boys and Girls Club, depending on the activity level at her location. It might be that we could add a Saturday, that first Saturday at this location. I will visit with her about that as well, but no, she is fully committed to the 2 weeks for us, for early vote. And we have our own separate entrance and exit, to be able to bring the voters in and out,
Okay.
so.
Well, I think it's good. I think it's unfortunate to lose Boys and Girls Club, but I understand their predicament in wanting to use all the space
Yeah.
for the kids. I just think we should put some major signage up all along Weddington
Oh, good call.
on the way out there,
Yeah.
so that folks know that we've got a early vote location out there.
Yeah, and I thought we might put up, especially at places that we are having to move locations, we'll put signs up earlier than we ever have in the
Good
past,
point.
so that
Yeah.
voters will start to see,
Thinking-
oh, hey, this is closed,
Yeah.
where's my alternative location?
Yes.
So we'll definitely do that as well.
I think that's a great idea. And I think a sign at those locations so that voters don't have to get out of their
Yes.
car. So they can just pull in and see,
Right.
you know, location moved to, you know, event center or whatever the address.
Right.
That way they can just swing through and continue onward and they don't get stopped. You know how you,
Yeah.
like,
Well,
you know, when you're
or
out
get out of your
running
car
around.
and go to the door and go,
Yep.
crap.
Right.
Because it's on the door and not in a sign.
Exactly, it's one of those things,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, what do you got for limited early vote?
So then for limited early vote, we would have, the location next to the neighborhood market in Fayetteville, and that would be that Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, which I think will get quite a bit of traffic on those 3 days at that location. So that would be the first week, so we have that definitely confirmed. The second week, we would have, at Lincoln, the Thursday and Friday at Lincoln. It actually was pretty successful, even for the
Right.
primary, you know, for that, community. And then, of course, Elmdale, would be in there, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, the second week of early voting. So I feel like we've given a lot of opportunities, for some extra early vote sites. I do have a phone call, a Zoom meeting with the University of Arkansas on Thursday about Bud Walton. And I do think that if the availability is there, the first week of early voting might be a good opportunity for us to set up the limited early voting at Bud Walton.
How many days?
Well, I think if we did Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, if we kept it consistent with what we're doing at the neighborhood market location, it makes it easy for voters to kind of figure out what it is. I don't know what the availability is. I don't know if we will be able to even get Bud Walton, but I do think that there is an opportunity for us to have it. And I prefer early vote over us trying to open it up as an election day site.
Right.
And the only reason I say that is I would have to, at that location, you would have to have a really, really well-seasoned supervisor and address change person because of the student population having address changes. But during early voting, I could pull a seasoned supervisor and address change individual, and we could set it up. And if it's promoted correctly, I think that it would pull voters from the courthouse, which in this instance wouldn't be such a terrible thing, but also from Central, and saying on election day, with the student population, if they did vote, or anyone else. Bud Walton is just right there, so it would definitely be easily
Plenty of parking.
accessible. Plenty of parking. That's the other issue we have to figure out is the parking and everything, but I'll know more after my Thursday meeting with them.
Well, as a longtime Razorback basketball fan, I think voting in Bud Walton would be awesome. And frankly, I think you can't find a much better location with social distancing. We've got plenty of space to spread out in there.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's definitely worth exploring.
Are we talking about on the floor, or are we talking about in a?
I have no idea. But, you know, when you go in, it wouldn't necessarily have to be there. They have like the round space you could set up, kind of like we met with Arvis Ballpark yesterday. And we're actually gonna stay in the visitors' locker room. We're just gonna set it up differently. But, because we have space to form the line and check people out and then exit them out, I'm sure Bud Walton has to have areas
similar stuff,
that are like that. Now, if we were on the basketball court, that would that would be amazing, but I don't know.
Probably bring a lot of people in just for that.
I mean, it would, you know.
I don't know if they'd let us put our voting equipment on that floor.
Well,
We're asking, you know.
My concern would be the access and the leaving, that could get problematic.
Right, we'd have to, just like what we do at Arvis, is figuring out which door to go into. That's always an issue at Bud Walton. You're like, okay, which entrance do I go? Where do I park? So those will all be things that I'll be discussing with them if it is available.
Yeah.
So.
Well, those buildings and properties are designed for pedestrian flow.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know that they
That's
have
true.
doors and they have access and egress in and out of that building in a dozen ways. So I don't anticipate any problem that you will encounter in getting the logistics worked out. I think you're on the right track. You know, I'm more impressed with the parking capabilities and the size and the location of the structure. If we can get that as a fill-in at this point, who knows what it might generate down the road, depending on their reception here of our idea. But that's the best location on the campus, as far as I'm concerned, because everyone can access that. Easy in, easy out. General public can do it as easily as the student can do it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what you can work out with them and see where it goes. But I think you've got a great opportunity there, and the facility will comply with what we need to do, in my opinion, without any issues. Great building that way.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bill. That's a good point.
Traffic.
Yep.
If we were ever gonna do anything on campus, that would be the kind of thing I would consider, prime location. Yeah, so we'll see.
What else?
That would be, I think that would be the only other limited early vote site that we had open for the primary is Goshen, but I don't know, I'm hesitant to do the limited early voting at Goshen. We have to figure out our floor plan at Goshen to begin with, and I think that with everything else we have, and the fact, I mean, I know it's not in the city of Goshen, but the one that's at the neighborhood market, that hits that hits that area of Fayetteville and Goshen, whenever they come into town, that Thursday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, whether they're going to work, going to pick up groceries, or coming, into town just for something.
There should be good signage there at 45-265. If
Yeah.
you're gonna drag those folks over.
Right.
Otherwise, they're not gonna know what's there.
I
Right,
agree about putting the signage, but I agree, if you put sufficient signage, it's right at the intersection, everybody's going out 45 to Goshen. Seems like it could make sense. I agree about the big signs, though. We should get some more of those big signs and put them at every corner that we can for some of those big early vote sites. I think that they really help and help get the word out.
And we gotta promote that early vote.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We must.
we're looking at you, Tom.
I'm not looking at you, but I'm looking at you.
It's not my circus, not my
Mm.
monkey.
Okay, let's move on. Election Day site review.
so I met with the Mount Comfort Church of Christ, so they will be available for us, so which is a plus for us.
Yeah.
Shiloh was great, but the parking was really, really narrow at Shiloh, and the city of Fayetteville just annexed in some of the area out there that, have been voting at Wheeler. Now they've been annexed into Fayetteville. They can still vote at Wheeler, but they may vote at the Mount Comfort Church of Christ, so it is available for us, so that definitely is a plus for us, and it has plenty of space inside, for us to be able to social distance. It's one of our busiest locations. I have a meeting with the Johnson Church of Christ, tomorrow morning just to finalize, but we are looking to replace Johnson City Hall, which social distancing just is non-existent there.
Impossible.
And parking has always
Yeah.
been an issue there too, so this definitely is probably a long-term solution for us going forward, not just because of COVID-19, but I think that this definitely will be a good move for us. In the city of Winslow, we're looking at the Assembly of God Church to combine Boston Mountain Fire Station and Brentwood. And so, it's a bigger facility, and we would be able to combine both polling locations into the one. At Yvonne Richardson Center, I'm still looking for a supervisor, but I think we have found a solution for that. I just need to talk to Evelyn about that. And then, Weddington Fire Station, I just got word from their supervisor that they are retiring, both her and her assistant. But I still feel like we need to try and keep Weddington Fire open. It has about 400 actual election day, between 300 and 400 actual election day voters that vote at the fire station. It is close to Covenant, which is an election day site that we have, but Covenant is already overwhelmed, that I don't want to add more voters to it. So I will, I think I have a solution for Weddington Fire, but we'll continue to look for a supervisor and a crew there at Weddington. Fortunately, with the smaller locations, sometimes it's easier to find supervisors because it's not as overwhelming as if you were all of a sudden at Central United Methodist and you're a supervisor. Yeah. The same thing with Wheeler. I think we're gonna need a few more, poll workers there. Wheeler is still one of those locations that continues to grow because that's the side of Fayetteville that's growing, and some of those neighborhoods that are being built over there have not necessarily been annexed into the city of Fayetteville, so they're technically in Wheeler. So we talked to the fire chief yesterday, to be able to have more room in that location. They're gonna pull out the fire trucks, so we'll have access to the bay, area. but every other location that we have, we've come up with solutions. We have poll workers where we're combined in everything, so, but then I have the ones that I think we will need to close. Durham Community Center, they only have 3 poll workers left at that polling location. The location is small enough that we could go ahead and move them to Elkins because they enjoy 2 weeks of early voting in that community. And I talked to the supervisor there as well. I feel like this could just be a temporary move. We wouldn't necessarily have to make it a permanent move. But he felt that because of concerns with COVID-19 and everything like that, I think the community would understand us just moving them there. Christian Life Cathedral is another one of the polling locations where I don't have a supervisor. I only have 4 crew members left. But since we're able to vote in the gym at Trinity Fellowship, that's a huge plus. I mean, that will be a mega site. And it has the space for us to be able to make it one.
And it's not that much farther away.
It's not, and so social distancing in that gymnasium will be so easy for us to do, so I don't see that that's necessarily a problem. Trinity Methodist is one where I actually need that supervisor to oversee our absentee ballot canvassing because that's more crucial than anything we've done in the past. We still only have a few, and we only have a few crew members there. We would potentially move those voters to Sang, but also if we were able to get Bud Walton, that's another incentive for voters who might have voted at Trinity Methodist to vote at Bud Walton during early voting.
Do you feel like there's gonna be a hole on that side of town without Trinity?
Yeah, I agree, it's a good location.
Yeah.
There's not much that's right around there.
No.
So we can look, if I have enough poll workers, I think I can get a replacement supervisor there, so we'll continue to look at that, but
And you ask the church too, maybe if it's a location, maybe they can help get some poll workers.
we actually have hired, if we get all the poll workers come in, I will have actually hired close to 70 poll workers for this election, but I have to get them all trained. And then we have several groups that are volunteering, so that definitely, we probably can work to keep Trinity Methodist open.
Trinity Fellowship.
No, Trinity Methodist.
Trinity Methodist.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Getting confused.
And
with
then
all these
Turner, that site is just too small. But with us moving to the Civic Center, it's in close proximity to the Civic Center, actually. And then Archer, because it is part of the Springdale School District, we're hesitant to open it, and I don't know that I'll have enough crew to keep it open as well, because I've also lost my supervisor at Nazarene, as well.
Did they let us stay open in the primary? Did we use it in the primary?
We did use it in the primary, but with the COVID-19 and the schools not being able to have any visitors at school and, all the other issues with the school districts,
Have you asked them?
We have not.
It's such a good site right in the middle of Springdale.
So I'll approach them and see what they say, right now,
Yeah, why don't you do that?
and see, but I do know that, with all the other schools, they've basically there's no visitors, nothing, no activity or anything like that, so I don't.
Principal there,
Yes.
well, a phone call won't hurt anything.
No, it won't, but I wanna be careful that we don't, with the amount of poll workers we've lost, we may have to make some strategic closures just because if we're understaffed and we're staffed with new poll workers for a general election, keeping a site open may hurt us in the long run if we don't have enough staff at those locations or enough experienced staff at locations.
It's still an unknown right now.
Right.
You've got volunteer, corporate sponsors that are willing to do it, to allow their people to work on election day and or some early election, I assume. But that's still up for preparation, because we don't know yet
Yeah.
where we really are with those volunteers or what have you. As you get closer, you'll have a little better idea.
Right.
And let's don't close anything we don't have to that's meaningful. I kind of concur with you that the Springdale school location is a great one, but they may not allow us to do it, with school closure.
We hadn't been able to get a hold of the school this summer, but with school going back
Oh,
in
yeah.
session,
Yeah.
we'll try again. We had called earlier in the year, but like I said, it was kind of with everything closed down and then them trying to get back, but I'll reach out to the principal at Archer again.
Yeah, if you don't have the workers, I get it, we can't open every single location. But on the flip side, I mean, if rodeo is moving a little bit south, it's
Yeah.
just such a good location in the center of Springfield
Well,
that
and
folks know about.
And they do have an easier in and out without really, mixing with whoever is attending at that particular
Right, I
facility.
think that was the thing we'll need to stress, though. We had a lot, even though there were students assisting us, there were still a lot of students in the area because there's classrooms all down.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and so that was part of the concern, is that, even though we're in the gymnasium, all along the gymnasium side are classroom where the kids are going in and out to the classrooms, even though because it's part of the gymnasium, because it's basically open
Yeah.
doors, and they open out into the gymnasium.
Well, it seems like they would have to keep some of that shut. I mean, I agree, they would be thinking about that too, I think.
Yeah,
I think it's worth reaching out to them.
Yeah, it is.
okay.
Okay, still up in the air.
Okay. Any other thoughts on the election day site review? Upcoming meetings. What was that?
I don't know.
We're being invaded by.
There's someone joining.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. I hadn't thought about that. Okay, upcoming meeting to finalize early vote and election day site. We have to do that.
We do. Obviously, the deadline to do that is October the 5th. I don't know that we want to wait
Push it that
that
long.
long. So we need to, and we don't have a meeting scheduled before then. So basically, we need to schedule a meeting, to finalize everything.
I mean, first half of September seems like it'd be good to finalize it by the end, doesn't it?
Yes,
The things we talked about just
Yeah.
prior to that, I think locations need to be determined before some of that can be done.
we'll reach out and have answers to that hopefully by the end of the week. I mean, 'cause I'll have the meeting with Bud
Yeah.
Walton, we'll see how that goes. We'll meet with Archer, or talk to Archer and see, and then we'll go from there.
So do you think mid-September is a good time, or is that not enough time?
So when you're talking mid-September, are you talking the week of the 15th or the week of the 22nd?
No, I was thinking the week of the 15th.
Right.
Okay. So I think, yes, I do think it would be,
It would be, an appropriate time?
yes.
Okay.
So I would ask that maybe on the 16th, if you're available. And the only reason I say the 16th is that gives me the 14th and the 15th to make sure that the county clerk's office is printing absentee ballots and they're all set for,
Wednesday?
that's a Wednesday. Or the 15th would be okay too, that was a Tuesday. The 15th is a Tuesday, the 16th is a Wednesday, or the 17th.
Any of those are good for me.
I can probably do the 15th or the 16th.
Okay, yeah.
15th works better for me. You know, when you put something right in the middle of the week, it kills that week.
That's true, yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna be out of town, it
Sure.
kills that week.
Right, right.
So I prefer it on the front end or the tail end. I don't mind Mondays and Fridays, because then you work around that.
Yeah, I agree.
Even Tuesday's okay, the 15th would be, I can make that work.
Okay.
Okay, let's do the
Do you
15th.
prefer a morning or afternoon? I mean, that's up to you too. I mean, either one is okay with us.
I don't care either.
Morning is fine.
All right, let's do 9 o'clock on the 15th.
Okay, and I'll have to find a room for it.
Oh, yeah. The vicissitudes of meeting
Yes.
places. Okay, well, let's tentatively schedule for September the 15th, 9 a.m., location to be determined.
Okay.
Absentee canvassing hours and counting.
So that I would like to, finalize at that meeting too. My plan for the canvassing, even though technically we can start that first Monday of early vote, I actually want us to start on Tuesday, and the only reason I say that is because I want early vote up and going and with no issues. And if we're just starting canvassing and there's an issue with early vote or an issue with canvassing, then I'm torn
Right, you don't need
between
that extra
which to
detail.
do. So we'll start on Tuesday and then, run Tuesday through Friday the first week, the second week, Monday through Friday, and then, the Monday before the election, and of course, Election Day. We can start counting at 8:30 on Election Day, but actually that means we can start just pulling the ballots out of the envelopes at 8:30. So I'll set that, for us to start in the courtroom, that process.
So, election day, we'll start.
We would need to start pulling the ballots out of the envelopes at
First thing in the
8:30
morning.
that morning.
All
And-
absentees that you received.
Basically, the plan will be to move from the emergency planning building over to the quorum courtroom. We would set that up as our canvassing site that day, and, because they'll still have ballots that they're having to canvass, but we'll also have to be pulling ballots out of the envelopes and then start the counting process as well.
What is your thinking is regarding manpower for that project?
That's trickier, although depending on the amount of absentee ballots we have, obviously that will determine that, but I actually have some poll workers who have signed up who would prefer to be part of the canvassing part of it, so we'll just move those canvassers, about 20 of them probably.
So we know currently that there've been over 5,000 requests today. I don't know what to contemplate between now and the shut-off date for absentee ballots being put forth. I guess you can put, anyone can request an absentee ballot right after election day.
Up to the day before the election.
So, you know, who knows
Right.
at this point in time? And we don't know if there's, let's just say if there's 8,000 votes, ballots that have been mailed, absentee ballots, that have been requested and mailed to recipients. We don't know what percent of return, but it's high. I was talking to Becky, county clerk, yesterday, and it's like 87% or better are returned
Yeah.
of those mailed out as requested. So that means that there'll be a pretty good follow through on an absentee ballot. So if you've got 7,000 or 8,000, you take that into consideration. I think you're gonna need to contemplate more than maybe you get, which would be healthy if it's at all possible. I don't know what kind of accurate count you can expect, I really don't.
So just running the numbers, if I have 10 crews, I hope to have 12, but I'm gonna say I only have 10, and they only canvass 40 an hour, and they work, let's just say 7, because even though it's an 8-hour day, we're really only gonna probably work 7. We can canvass over 20,000 in that 2-week time period.
Okay, so you're
Okay.
saying that you can man up to cover 20,000 ballots
That's just,
in that 2-week period.
in that time period.
So you, are comfortable then with the numbers and staffing?
And if we get more, then we'll have to look at adding more,
yeah.
but this would be our initial plan for that. The hard part is the Monday, or the Tuesday.
Yeah, counting them.
'Cause that's the day everything has to happen, and
Right.
that's the day that all the ballots have to be pulled out of their envelopes, flattened, and then run through the machine. The
Yeah.
nice thing is we only have a one-page ballot, so that's like a
Yeah.
huge plus.
Has
Yeah.
the governor's office responded to your request to allow counting ballots before election day? Because based on our test run of the new machine, I know there are some concerns about being able to count all of those ballots before,
Right.
I guess they changed the law so there's no 8 p.m. deadline to report the numbers, but still, we wanna make sure we count all those ballots on election day, if possible, absentee ballots. And we can count through the night and then the following days, and I understand that may be something we have to face, but we'd rather be able to do it on the front end, right?
Right.
So we did ask, when we had our conversation with the governor's office, and this was just with its representative, or with their legal counsel,
Mhm.
the consensus was they didn't want to change the actual date of counting, because they felt that with too many executive orders changing election laws could bring us the potential for lawsuits to be filed about the validity of the election.
Right.
And the canvassing of the ballots doesn't, I guess, from their point of view, and this was, they had met with legislators too,
Oh, good.
didn't or wouldn't change the outcome of the election, but actually letting us
Mhm.
open up and start running ballots through the machine could potentially be seen as, too much of a change in the law. And that was why the executive order stopped short of allowing us the extra day to count.
Okay, so we're gonna live with what we have and move forward accordingly.
Yes, now we have on the 21st, we have another phone call with the SOS, the SBEC, and the governor's office as well, but they were pretty adamant, about sticking to what they had done.
And from what you're saying, you believe we can get that done with, what are you saying, if we had 20,000 absentees?
We can canvass
Oh,
20,000
oh, that's right, you were
absentees
saying
in the
canvass.
2 weeks.
Okay.
Show
The-
us the numbers, I think, can you count all of those ballots on election day? If we have to count 20,000 ballots, can you count every single one on election day? I think, show us the math, because it is just math.
Yeah,
It's just-
yeah,
It's ballots, run
Right.
through X machine,
right.
so you can count this many an hour.
So that potentially, yes. The part that concerns me the most is the actual pulling the ballots out of the envelope.
Right.
Because see, how long will that process take? Because we can't start running ballots through the machine until we get ballots out of the envelopes. And we can't get ballots out of the envelopes until Tuesday at 8:30 that morning.
Do you have, an automatic splitter that you can use for those envelopes?
So we have, when we're canvassing, we would be able to do
Okay,
that.
but you don't have a machine that, aren't there places that have those kind of machines where you can just send them through just like you would for postage?
I don't know,
So it might have.
but we would have
Be worth looking at.
Absolutely,
to
'cause if we could
be
expedite
cautious.
that process.
So
We
you
would,
don't wanna cut
the ballot.
Well,
That's
yeah,
my-
you don't wanna do that, but it would be the same way as a stamp machine that just, you put a pile down and stamps them one by one by one, and it has to be, I don't know what the proper term is, but it has to, be set up so that it's only gonna do that top lift of the envelope.
Right, but then we still have to take them out of the envelope.
Right.
That, I mean,
But
it's
if-
like this,
but if you can- if you can get them all open,
right,
then you're gonna be a whole lot quicker and open them in one swoop rather than open one, pull it out, open one, pull it out.
right.
I think it's a good suggestion and worth looking into.
We need to look at it.
Melco may be
Yeah, Melco may have them,
something that could help or some ideas.
yeah.
Talking about ballots, I don't know if this is an issue, but I've been thinking about it a little bit. If someone asks for an absentee ballot and they get it mailed to them, and they are running short on time, they don't get it filled out, or whatever the case may be, they decide not to mail it, but to bring it to the vote site and vote on site. Now you have the absentee ballot, and now you're gonna have a
Provisional.
provisional. How much of an issue do we think that will be, if any at all?
So we are already gearing up, for more provisional ballots
Yeah.
in all of our sites, so the packets for the provisional ballots. So we've already kind of upped the number of provisionals that we'll see at the polling location for that very issue.
Yeah.
But our poll workers have all been trained to not accept that provisional ballot because
You
that,
mean the absentee?
the absentee, and then they vote a provisional. So we have doubled what we normally send to the polling locations in regards to provisional ballots. Because we do anticipate that that will be an issue. But now, I have been, visiting with Becky's office as well, and Becky wants to do, curbside absentee ballot return. And so that's one thing we're looking at to do every Friday in October.
Okay.
So the voters could actually return their absentee ballot.
But it's hand to hand.
It's so basically, yes, and,
There's never a box, there's always a consistent, what do they call it? What's the
Chain of
legal?
custody.
Chain of
Yes.
custody, thank you.
So the voter, the idea would be the voter would pull in, it would be right outside our office.
Mhm.
The voter would pull in, they have to show ID. So there is
Right,
no
right.
getting around them not showing ID.
Right.
They have to show ID. The ID, obviously the face has to match the person in the vehicle. And then that information has to match the ballot, because it'll be printed on the ballot,
Right.
has to match that as well, the name and everything. So they would be able to return their ballot. That would be exactly the process that they do
Yeah.
in the county clerk's office.
Oh,
We
right.
would just be doing it on the
Wouldn't have to
curbside.
get out of their car and take it upstairs.
Exactly.
On
Will
this
we be
floor.
assisting, or will the county clerk do it?
So we will be assisting in that. It's gonna be right outside our
Mhm.
office, and we'll be help monitoring it. But she has 2 part-time staff that normally work early vote, that we're gonna work to see if they'll work the Fridays. And they will man it, and then the clerk's office will be available as well. And there'll be a ballot box there that's sealed and everything like
Okay,
that.
yeah.
So, yeah. So the only difference is basically, we're just taking the county clerk's counter, and we're just
Moving it
putting
down
it
there.
down to the
Yeah.
curbside to let the voters not have to get out of their car and just hand deliver it. But the process would be exactly the same as if, they were doing it in the clerk's office. The only thing she does not want to handle at the curbside is a designated bearer, because that takes more paperwork, because a designated bearer has a different form that they have to sign, and there's a different sheet. So she just kind of is looking at it for if you are personally bringing back your own ballot.
So essentially, we could do that process down there, but if it's a designated bearer, they must come up here.
That's what she would prefer, yes.
I think it's way too confusing. I think half the people down there are gonna be designated bearers. I just
Really?
think the messaging is
Yeah?
it's gonna be way too difficult.
You
Because
have-
think about this, like, you know, husband, wife, both voting absentee, you
Oh,
know,
and one-
I'll
yeah.
return the ballot, you know, out running errands, whatever, oh, yeah, I'll drop it off. Well, whoever's dropping it off can return theirs, but they can't return
Right.
the other person. I mean, can't you see that scenario
Yeah, I
playing
do
out?
see that.
But
in a
you
number of
sign up
ways.
to be a designated bearer. So if a husband and wife, let's say we've mailed their ballots to
Yeah.
them, you sign up on the front end to be a designated bearer. So
Just
it's,
as a stopgap measure.
no, I'm saying that doesn't typically happen. So
Oh.
if we're mailing ballots to, say, a husband and wife, the plan is that they're receiving their ballot and then they would return it individually. Designated bearers typically are for someone who can't get out, they are not out running errands or different things like that, and so they have assigned someone to pick up their ballot on the front end, not on the back end, basically.
I think the absentee process is extremely confusing to the voters.
Yeah, it is.
The way that the Arkansas law is written on absentee ballots, and I think that sort of, scenario under the law is gonna happen, because people aren't maybe first-time absentee voters, and they don't know that you have to sign up as a designated
Yeah.
bearer on the front end, and/or, you know, they both sign up to get absentee ballots, and then it's getting close to the deadline and decide to return them, and drop them off and don't realize that's a different process.
Right. Well, that's where people need to understand the best way to get their ballot in is to come in person.
Well, and maybe that ties in with, early voting, you know,
Yeah,
3 best
that's right.
dates,
Yep.
locations,
Yep.
so folks have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea, Jennifer, for Becky to do that. I just think if you're trying to only do it on 4 Fridays, and you're trying to only accept one form of absentee ballot and not a designated bearer, I think you're gonna run into a lot of issues. I
So,
would encourage her to accept designated bearer ballots down there as well, if she's gonna
Okay.
do it.
I'll talk with Becky about that.
I doubt that she's gonna be receptive to that.
Well, I mean, it's having a couple more forms down there, right? Basically, a couple more clipboards that folks
Yeah.
have to fill out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, she'll have to address that, that's.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's her thing, it's not ours.
Right. But again, best way to vote is to come in person, make sure your vote gets tabulated.
It is, it's just difficult with the absentee ballots,
Yeah.
because we're gonna have a lot of first-time absentee
Exactly,
voters.
yes.
And those folks don't know the process. And
Right.
there is a specific process.
Yeah.
And I agree with you guys that coming in person to vote is the way that
And-
you'll avoid any hiccups in the process.
You know, that's what we need to encourage people to do, simply because there are glitches that are bound to happen the other direction.
Yep.
Okay. Have we beat that horse to death?
we have, and I'll
All right.
visit with Becky. So we haven't put any information out. She's just trying to think through, because
Yeah.
every day, drop-off boxes, that's the big thing. Are we doing drop-off
I know.
boxes? And this would be kind of a solution
Right.
for that, where you could maintain the chain of custody.
It's a responsiveness to the voters that, you know, is good to at least evaluate.
Yeah.
All right, runoff election polling locations.
So at that same meeting on September the 15th, we would need to designate the runoff election polling locations as well, just because we do vote centers, obviously for the city of Fayetteville, we don't need to open up the whole county, so we actually have to designate our runoff election polling location. And I'll have different, scenarios for you
Good.
in case of just Ward 1, just Ward 4, you know,
Right.
or all the city. And I need to, do we want to open up all locations, or do we want to consolidate too? So,
All right, upcoming meetings, October the 1st. That's not actually for us, is it? Oh, it is,
Yes.
poll worker notice, excuse me, I
Yes.
just saw the poll worker.
We'll sign,
Hmm?
we'll sign the poll worker notice and the LNA certification. I do need to move, actually,
You've been interrupting my sleep, aren't you?
well, actually, I might need to move that either to the afternoon or 8 o'clock. We will still be training on that day, and training starts at 8:30. But we could do a
That's a
4
Thursday.
o'clock, it's a Thursday.
I don't know, I might be out of town, but I could do it remotely.
Mm.
And this one should just be signed, like it should,
Okay,
like
yeah.
all our big decisions,
Have
we've already
by
been
then.
made. This
Yeah.
is just formalizing paperwork, that we have to for each election.
So, you wanna go 4 o'clock then, Bill?
On October 1,
Yeah,
what clock's fine with you?
okay. And if you're out of town, you can do remote.
Cool.
Okay,
Sounds good.
November 3rd.
And
Election
then
day.
that's election day. We talked about the canvassing, we can't start until 8:30. I've got that at 9. We'll need to review that. 8:30 is good, but you never know what other election day
Oh,
issues we
good
run
point,
into
yeah.
too, so,
Yeah,
but yes. And then November the 5th is the provisional ballot review and runoff.
do we wanna set a time for that now, or hold off on a time?
I think we wanna hold off on a time just because we don't know how many provisionals
Right,
we'll
right.
get, even though we're giving Becky an extra day, but with everything.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, 'cause it's not on the 4th, it's actually the Thursday.
Okay.
So, the other meeting date I don't have included on here is October the 6th is our budget hearing day.
Oh, yeah.
I will let you know if that gets changed, but they went ahead and just scheduled every department to present their budget, and once they figure out the budget controls, we'll know more if we actually have to present our budget or not.
Other business? Anything else?
I don't think so. The absentee ballot thing, just concerns me not counting people's ballots. And I'm worried that there are gonna be hundreds of ballots that we're unable to count on election day because people haven't followed the law, and crossed their Ts and dotted their Is.
Yeah.
And I hate to throw ballots out for a technical reason,
Yeah.
when it's required by the law. So I don't know what we can do other than what we've done and what we're trying to do to get the word out about common mistakes, that in order to help voters avoid some of those processes.
Right.
Because it's, long-time absentee voters, they understand the process, but it can be confusing to new absentee voters.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a new process, they haven't done it before, so.
Okay.
If you guys have any other thoughts along those lines, I'd say let's just think about it.
Yeah, bring
I'm
some
open
thoughts
to
to the next,
Yeah.
to the next meeting. I don't,
Well, this is one of those times when the voters are gonna have to take more responsibility than ever before, if they choose to go that route.
yeah, right,
The other side of that equation,
right.
we don't have a lot of flexibility as
That's right,
commissioners.
that's right. Well, because we're following the law,
We have
and
to.
It's true.
we've got to do that. And,
There will be some folks that get caught up in that,
yeah,
there's no doubt.
Yeah.
We just hope that there's minimal.
it's in the voters' hands more than it is in our hands.
You're right. You're right.
So, and I, to be completely fair, I think that Jennifer and her crew has made the most foolproof, documents to put with the absentee stuff. I don't know how you can make it any plainer.
They've done a great job, I agree. Within, as you
Yeah,
mentioned, the
yes.
confines of the law.
Yes,
You guys have done a great job, I agree with you.
we appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
if there's no other business then, we are adjourned.
Cool.
All right.
I'm going upstairs. Do you have anything,
Very good.
that you need from the judge? Did you get that, did he send out the, oh.